What if I told you a toxic boss who'd spent years destroying careers, humiliating employees, and treating people like pawns, was taken down in less time than it takes to boil water? 2 minutes. That's all it took to turn the king of the board into a fallen piece. And the best part? He never even saw the checkmate coming. Every empire has its tyrant. Ours was named Richard Hale. Richard wasn't just a bad boss. He was the kind of man who made you dread Mondays before Sunday even ended. He thrived on humiliation, wielded power like a weapon, and treated employees like disposable chess pieces. If you made a mistake, he didn't correct you. He destroyed you, often in front of everyone. For years, I kept my head down, thinking I could survive his reign. But you can only watch so many people get crushed before you realize survival isn't enough. The breaking point came during a Monday morning meeting. I had spent weeks designing a pitch for a potential client, something that could bring in millions. As I presented, Richard sat back, smirking, tapping his pen like he already knew how this would end. When I finished, he didn't even look at the slides. He looked at me. "Pathetic," he said loudly, in front of 30 colleagues. "This is why you'll never get anywhere in this company." Amateur hour. The room went silent. My face burned, but Richard wasn't done. He leaned forward, eyes cold. "From now on, leave the big thinking to people who can actually think." The laughter that followed wasn't from humor. It was from fear. My coworkers laughed because they didn't want to be next. That night, sitting alone in my apartment, staring at the same slides he had mocked, something shifted inside me. I realized Richard wasn't a boss. He was a bully in a suit. And bullies only thrive when everyone plays by their rules. So I decided to change the game. I didn't want revenge that took years. I wanted something clean, precise, surgical. A checkmate in 2 moves. And little did Richard know, he had already given me the perfect opportunity. Richard thought he was invincible. He strutted around the office like a king surveying his kingdom, barking orders, belittling managers, and taking credit for everyone else's work. Most people avoided him like landmines. One wrong step, and your career was over. But I had begun to see something others didn't. Richard wasn't untouchable. He was careless. And like in chess, when a king grows arrogant, his pawns scatter, his rooks weaken, and his queen is left exposed. That night after his public humiliation, I sat at my desk replaying every insult he'd ever hurled, every meeting he'd twisted to his advantage. And I realized something chilling. Richard wasn't actually smart. He was just loud. He knew how to intimidate, how to make people doubt themselves, how to weaponize fear. But real strategy? He had none. So I decided to fight him the only way he understood, like a game of chess. If he wanted to treat us like pawns, then I would become the one person willing to sacrifice pieces for the final checkmate. The opening move came 2 days later, during another department meeting. Richard, as usual, strutted in late, waving his phone, pretending to be too busy with important calls to notice us. He slammed a folder on the table. "Corporate wants a revised proposal on the international logistics project by Friday," he said. "And since our resident amateur thinks he's so creative, let's put him in charge." The room went silent. Everyone knew what this meant. It wasn't an opportunity. It was a setup. Richard wanted me to fail again, this time publicly, so he could use it to bury me once and for all. But what he didn't know was that I had already seen this move coming. I accepted the challenge with a calm nod. "I'll handle it." Richard smirked. "Good. Let's hope you can handle at least one thing without embarrassing yourself." After the meeting, Daniel, one of the few colleagues who hadn't abandoned me, pulled me aside. "He's trying to hang you. Don't take the bait." I smiled. "That's what he thinks. But this time, I'm holding the rope." For 3 nights straight, I worked like a man possessed. Not on the proposal itself. That was the obvious move Richard expected me to waste my energy on. No, I built something far more dangerous. I collected every email where Richard had stolen credit, every report where he falsified numbers, every presentation where he sabotaged staff to elevate himself. I cross-referenced them with internal memos and client reports. Slowly, I built a dossier, a complete record of Richard's corruption. By Thursday night, the proposal was ready. But so was my secret weapon. Friday morning arrived. Richard walked into the boardroom already grinning, expecting to watch me choke. But what he didn't know was that the board wasn't just about to see my proposal. They were about to see him for who he really was. Friday morning. The boardroom smelled of polished wood and arrogance. Executives filled the long table, laptops open, coffee steaming. At the head sat Richard, smirk plastered on his face as though the meeting was already his victory lap. He leaned toward the chairman. "I'll let my junior handle this," he said loudly, making sure everyone heard. I figured it's good practice for him before the real work begins. The words stung, but I kept my face calm. Inside, though, the chessboard was already in motion. I stood, walked to the projector, and opened my slides. "Thank you for this opportunity," I began. "Today, I'll be presenting our revised logistics proposal. But before I dive into the solution, I'd like to address some recurring issues that have been plaguing our operations." Richard shifted in his chair. This wasn't the script he expected. He interrupted, waving a hand. "Let's not waste time on excuses. Just show them the numbers." But the chairman raised a hand. "Let him continue." I clicked to the next slide. An email appeared on the screen, one sent months ago, where Richard had taken credit for a project Daniel and I had completed. Gasps rippled through the room. "Over the past year," I continued, voice steady, "there have been multiple instances where project failures were blamed on staff, while successes were misattributed." I flipped through another slide, a report showing Richard's falsified budget adjustments, hiding overspending under miscellaneous costs. Murmurs filled the room. Richard's smirk vanished. He slammed his fist on the table. "This is outrageous. He's twisting data to make himself look good." I looked him dead in the eye. "Am I? Or should we ask the clients whose feedback was ignored, the staff who were discredited, the numbers that don't add up?" The chairman leaned forward. "Do you have more evidence?" "Plenty," I replied. One by one, I laid out the documents I'd gathered, emails, reports, testimonials. Each piece was a pawn advancing, cornering the king. The board members' expressions hardened with every slide. Finally, I switched to the proposal itself. Using the same data Richard had buried, I showed them a clear, cost-effective solution that not only fixed the logistics problem but also highlighted the risks his falsifications had created. The room went silent. Then, slowly, the chairman began to clap. Others followed. "This," he said firmly, "is the kind of leadership we need. Transparent, strategic, effective." His eyes cut to Richard. "Not deceptive, self-serving, and reckless." Richard's face turned crimson. "You can't do this. I'm the director." The chairman's voice was like ice. "Not for much longer if these findings hold true." For the first time in years, Richard looked rattled. His empire of intimidation was crumbling, and it had only taken a few slides. But I wasn't done yet. I had shown the board his weakness. Now, I just needed 2 minutes to end his career completely. The boardroom buzzed with uneasy energy after my presentation. Some executives whispered to each other, others tapped notes furiously on their tablets. The chairman leaned back, hands clasped, his eyes locked on Richard. Richard tried to regain control, voice booming across the table. "This is all misrepresented nonsense. He's twisting documents to look like some kind of hero. I've led this department for years. Without me, none of you would even have jobs." The arrogance in his tone only deepened the board's scowls. One director finally spoke. "If that's true, Richard, then you won't mind explaining these numbers." She tapped the report I had exposed. Richard's eyes darted across the page, sweat glistening at his temple. "Those figures. They were preliminary. Adjusted later. It's standard practice." But the chairman cut in sharply. "Adjusted or manipulated?" Richard froze. For the first time, the room saw what I had seen all along. Not a leader, but a fraud cracking under pressure. This was the moment I had waited for. The queen exposed, the king cornered. But I needed one final move. The checkmate. "May I show one last file?" I asked calmly. The chairman nodded. I clicked the remote, and an internal memo appeared on the screen. One Richard had written himself, accidentally CC'd me months ago. In it, he bragged about shifting blame onto junior staff to protect his own image with upper management. Gasps erupted. Executives leaned forward, reading every damning word. Richard shot up, shouting, "That's taken out of context. You don't understand how leadership works." But he was cut off by Daniel, who I had quietly asked to attend as an observer. Daniel stood, voice steady but firm. I was there. I watched him sabotage our projects, take credit for our work, and humiliate staff to hide his mistakes. Everything you've seen today is the truth. The room fell silent. The trap had sprung. The chairman's voice was cold steel. "Richard, leave the room. We'll deliberate without you." Richard's face twisted with rage. He pointed at me, spitting venom. "This is your doing. You think you've won? You're nothing without me." I didn't flinch. Instead, I leaned forward and delivered the final line I had rehearsed in my head for weeks. "No, Richard. I'm nothing because of you. And that ends today." Security entered quietly, escorting him out as he muttered curses under his breath. The door slammed shut behind him. 2 minutes. That's all it had taken. In the space of 120 seconds, Richard had gone from untouchable king of the boardroom to a humiliated man stripped of his power. The board turned back to me. The chairman's expression softened. "Your evidence is clear. Your strategy is sharp. We'll be making decisions soon, but I can tell you right now, your future here is secure." I exhaled slowly, adrenaline still surging. The pieces had moved, the trap had sprung, and the game was mine. But this wasn't just about survival anymore. This was corporate chess, and I had just claimed checkmate. The boardroom felt like a church after a funeral. Hushed voices, heavy air, the weight of something ending. Richard was gone, escorted out in fury, but his shadow still lingered in the silence he left behind. The chairman broke it first. "Let's be clear, what we just witnessed wasn't leadership. It was manipulation. Richard Hale abused his position, and we allowed it to go unchecked far too long." A murmur of agreement circled the table. Directors who once laughed at Richard's cruel jokes now shook their heads, ashamed. One of the senior executives turned to me. "How long have you been gathering this evidence?" I hesitated, then answered honestly. "Since the first time I realized he wasn't just hard on staff, he was sabotaging them. People were afraid to speak up. I knew the only way to stop him was to show you the truth in full." Another director leaned forward. "And the proposal you presented, was it really built from the same data Richard hid?" "Yes," I said firmly. "The difference is I didn't twist it to protect myself. I used it to protect this company." The room went silent again, but this time it wasn't heavy. It was calculating. Like they were weighing pieces on a chessboard, considering their next move. Finally, the chairman nodded. "We'll open a formal investigation into Richard's conduct. Effective immediately. His directorship is suspended. He will not be returning." Relief washed through me, but before I could even exhale, the chairman continued. "In the meantime, this $50 million logistics contract cannot wait. We need someone to lead it. Someone who has proven they can see past smoke and mirrors, and put the company first." The room's eyes shifted toward me. I blinked. "Sir, are you saying?" He smiled faintly. "I'm saying we'd like you to take interim leadership of this project. If you deliver on this, we'll be discussing something much bigger. Permanent leadership." The air left my lungs in a rush. Just days ago, I was the humiliated employee in remedial training. Now, I was being handed the reins of the very deal Richard thought would make him untouchable. Daniel, seated in the back, gave me a subtle nod. The kind of nod that said, "You earned this." I straightened my shoulders. "I'll do it. And I won't let you down." The chairman tapped the table, finalizing the moment. Then it settled. The pieces have fallen. A new game begins. As the meeting adjourned, I caught a glimpse of Richard through the glass wall of the lobby, still arguing with security, red-faced and trembling with rage. For years, he had treated the company like his chessboard, moving people around, discarding them when it suited him. But in the end, he never realized the truth. He wasn't the king. He was just another piece. And pieces fall. Taking over the logistics contract felt like stepping onto a battlefield where every move mattered. This wasn't just about a project. It was my chance to prove that Richard's downfall wasn't a fluke, but the beginning of a new order. The team looked nervous when I called the first strategy session. They'd spent years under Richard's thumb, conditioned to expect ridicule for every idea. I saw it in their eyes. Hesitation, fear, silence. So I did the opposite of what Richard would have done. Every voice matters here, I told them. We're building this together. Mistakes aren't punishments, they're lessons. And if we succeed, we succeed. For a moment, the room was quiet. Then slowly, hands went up. Ideas flowed. Energy sparked. It was as though chains were falling off one by one. By the end of the meeting, the team was buzzing, already sketching solutions and volunteering for tasks. I stayed late every night, side by side with them, not above them. We built a system that cut delivery times by 20%, saved nearly $3 million in operational costs, and opened a direct channel with international partners who praised our transparency. Word spread quickly. Clients who had once been skeptical now requested to work with our team exclusively. Colleagues from other departments peeked into our sessions, shocked at the collaboration, the laughter, the speed at which problems were solved. Meanwhile, Richard was unraveling. News of the board's investigation leaked. Old complaints resurfaced. Former employees came forward with stories of sabotage and bullying. His carefully built facade collapsed like a house of cards in the wind. One afternoon, as I walked past HR, I overheard Richard shouting in desperation, "You can't just erase me from this company. I made this place what it is." The HR director's calm reply cut sharper than any scream. "No, Richard. You almost destroyed it. Others kept it alive despite you." That evening, I received an email from the chairman. It was brief, but it carried the weight of everything I had fought for. "Congratulations. The board unanimously agrees to appoint you as Director of Strategic Operations. Your leadership has proven invaluable." I stared at the screen, the words blurring for a moment. Director. The very title Richard had once wielded to crush me was now mine. The next day, the official announcement went out. Applause echoed through the halls. The same co-workers who once whispered about my humiliation now stopped me in the corridors with smiles, handshakes, and genuine respect. As I settled into my new office, a corner office that had once been Richard's, I allowed myself one glance out the window, where months of struggle had finally led me. Richard had played his game with intimidation and deceit. I had played mine with patience and precision. In the end, it wasn't brute force that toppled him. It was strategy. Corporate chess. And I had just been crowned. The email naming me director spread through the company like wildfire. Applause in hallways, congratulatory handshakes, even senior executives stopping by my office with smiles that felt real for the first time. But the real moment came 2 weeks later. The board had scheduled a company-wide meeting to announce the leadership transition. Hundreds of employees filled the atrium, eyes fixed on the stage. At the front row, flanked by HR officers, sat Richard, pale, disheveled, clinging to the last shreds of his reputation. The chairman stepped up first. His voice boomed across the room. For years, this company has thrived despite challenges. One of those challenges has been a culture of fear created by leadership. Today that culture ends. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Richard's jaw clenched. The chairman continued. Effective immediately, Richard Hale is terminated from his position. The board has reviewed evidence of misconduct, mismanagement, and sabotage. We will not tolerate it any longer. The atrium erupted. Some gasps, but mostly applause. People stood, clapping, cheering, as though chains had finally broken. Richard shot to his feet, his voice cracking. "This is a mistake. You can't do this. I built this place. None of you would be here without me." Security stepped forward, but the chairman raised a hand. "Let him speak. 2 minutes." The room went still. Richard sputtered, ranting about loyalty, about how everyone was ungrateful, about how the company would crumble without him. But as he spoke, I watched the crowd. Faces that once bowed to him now stared with contempt. People weren't afraid anymore. Finally, he turned his glare to me. "And you? You think you've won? You think you can replace me?" I rose slowly, microphone in hand. My voice was calm, steady, and sharp as glass. "No, Richard. I didn't replace you. I outplayed you. While you treated this company like your personal chessboard, moving people like pawns, I learned the game. And in the end, all it took was 2 minutes to show everyone who you really are. The atrium exploded in applause. Richard's face drained of color. His kingdom had turned against him in real time. Security escorted him out, his shouts drowned beneath the cheers. The man who once silenced rooms with fear now left in humiliation, carrying nothing but a box of his belongings. The chairman turned to the crowd, raising my hand. This is the kind of leadership we choose, strategic, honest, and unbreakable. That moment wasn't just victory. It was vindication. I looked out at the hundreds of faces, no longer fearful but hopeful. And I realized, this wasn't just my triumph. It was our liberation. Richard had always believed he was the king. But kings fall. In corporate chess, it's not about who shouts the loudest. It's about who thinks ahead. And I had just proven, to him, to the board, to everyone, that strategy wins every time. Checkmate.